The frozen planet and the cry. The wind screamed across the icy plains. The snow fell like sharp needles. Nothing lived on this part of the planet. No trees, no animals. Only cold, only silence. Daniel walked slowly through the storm. His thick boots crunched on the frozen ground. He was a human explorer sent by Earth to study this planet, named E-17. People called it the White Graveyard. He had been alone here for 5 days. His ship had landed near a broken hill, and now he was searching for useful materials or signs of life. But he never found anything until today. Suddenly, Daniel stopped. He heard something, a sound, a soft sound. It was hard to hear in the wind, but it was there. Is that crying? He said to himself. He turned off his snow scanner and listened again. Yes, a soft, high-pitched cry. It was faint, like the sound of a baby or a scared animal. Daniel's eyes widened. There should be nothing alive here. So where was that sound coming from? He followed it, moving quickly now. His scanner beeped a weak heat signal ahead. Something small, something warm. But only barely. After a few minutes, he reached a spot where the snow was piled up high. The crying was louder here. Daniel fell to his knees and began digging with his hands. His fingers burned from the cold, but he kept going. Then he saw it, a small body, covered in ice. Glowing faintly, Daniel carefully pulled the little figure out of the snow. It was no more than 3 feet tall. Its skin was pale blue, with glowing white lines across its arms and neck. Its head was too big for a human child. Its eyes were closed, but the tears on its face were frozen in place. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. This is not a human, he whispered. The child moved slightly. Its fingers curled. Then its eyes opened bright, glowing blue. Eyes. They stared at Daniel with fear and confusion. It's okay, Daniel said softly. I'm not here to hurt you. The child didn't speak, but its eyes blinked slowly. A small hand reached out and touched Daniel's jacket. Then, storms suddenly got stronger. The wind howled louder. The temperature dropped fast. Daniel looked up at the sky. We have to get out of here, he said. He wrapped the alien child in his thermal blanket and picked him up. The body was very light, almost like foam. The child shivered, glowing slightly in his arms. Daniel ran through the snow. His base was 1 kilometer away. He had to make it. The snow blinded him. His legs were tired. But he did not stop. Inside the base, he laid the child on the small bed. He turned on the heater and checked the oxygen levels. The child opened its eyes again. It was breathing slowly. Can you understand me? Daniel asked. The child blinked once. Who are you? Where are you from? No answer. But then the child pointed up toward the sky. Daniel looked confused. You're home? The child gave a tiny nod. Then the child tried to speak. Its voice was soft and broken. Mom, sky, boom. Run. Daniel's heart sank. A crash. A mother, running. This child had survived something terrible. Daniel turned to his computer and activated the long-range signal scanner. Maybe he could find something, a wreck, a ship, or a signal from whoever brought the child here. Then something happened. The scanner beeped. A weak signal. Not human. Strange frequency. Not far from here. Daniel stared at the screen. That's not from Earth Tech, he said. Is that your ship? The child sat up slowly, weak but alert. His small hand touched the screen. The signal blinked faster when he touched it. He was connected to it. Daniel realized something. This child isn't just from a crashed ship, he said quietly. He's part of it. He turned to look at the boy again, but the child was shaking. Now, his skin flickered between blue and white. Daniel rushed to him and held his hand. It's okay. You're safe now. The child looked at him with big eyes. He whispered something in a strange language, but Daniel didn't understand. Still, he smiled. You're not alone anymore. But in that moment, outside the base, something moved in the snow. A shadow passed across the window. Someone or something was watching. Inside the small research base, silence filled the room. Only the soft hum of the heater broke it. Daniel sat beside the strange child, watching him closely. The child was sleeping now, wrapped in warm blankets. His skin no longer looked frozen, but it still had a strange blue color like the sky at night. The glowing lines on his arms faded slowly in and out like breathing lights. Daniel leaned back in his chair. His mind was full of questions. What was this child? Where did he come from? What had happened to him? And most important of all was he alone? The storm outside had calmed down, but the air still shook with cold. Daniel checked the signal again on his computer. That strange frequency was still active, coming from somewhere east of the base, maybe a few miles away. It was not a human signal. That much was clear. The code, the sound, it was alien. Suddenly, the child opened his eyes. Daniel turned quickly. Hey, he said gently, you're awake. The child blinked slowly. His eyes were bright blue, glowing softly in the dim light. He sat up a little and looked around, confused and scared. His small hands gripped the blanket tightly. You're safe here, Daniel said. He spoke slowly and clearly, not sure how much the child could understand. I found you in the snow. You were almost gone. The child tilted his head, then pointed to his chest. Yan, he said in a tiny voice. Daniel smiled. Is that your name? The child blinked once, then nodded. Double quotes, Yan, Daniel repeated. I'm Daniel, human. Yen looked at Daniel carefully, then spoke again. You not hurt? Daniel shook his head. No, I'm here to help. Yen looked down, quiet. Then he raised his hand, and from his palm, a small light floated upward. It was like a hologram made of energy. Daniel's eyes widened as he saw the image. A large alien ship flying in space, then shaking, then falling in flames toward a white planet. Then came another image. A woman with long glowing hair held a small child, Yen. She was crying. She placed Yen inside a silver pod, kissed his forehead, and sent him away. The pod flew through the air, heading toward the snow. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. So, your mother sent you away. To protect you, he whispered. Yen nodded. Boom, fire, many gone. Daniel stared at the screen. Your ship crashed, your people. The child didn't finish the sentence. He turned away, hugging the blanket. Tightly. Daniel sat beside him. I'll help you find her. We'll check that signal. Maybe it's her. Yen looked hopeful. You come? Yes, Daniel said softly. I promise. He stood up and walked to the scanner. The signal was growing stronger. It was moving slowly, still east. But now it was clearer. It repeated something over and over. Daniel couldn't understand the words, but Yen suddenly stood up and pointed. Home. That way, he said. Mom. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Are you sure? Yen nodded. Her signal. She alive. Daniel quickly grabbed his map. We can go tomorrow morning. The storm should be lighter. I'll bring supplies. Suddenly, the lights in the base flickered. Daniel froze. What the? The heater shut off for 3 seconds, then started again. The computer screen glitched. For a moment, the signal changed pitch higher, darker. Yen stepped back, his eyes wide. No, not her. Bad ones come. Daniel turned to him. What bad ones? Yen whispered. They want me. Not help, they chase. Daniel's heart sank. You mean they're following the signal too? Yen didn't answer. He just stood there, shaking, and then said, "Hide." Daniel moved fast. He shut off the main beacon and reduced all lights to emergency mode. He didn't know who or what was out there, but if they were coming for Yen, he had to be ready. Outside, in the far distance, the snow glowed faintly red for a moment, then faded. Daniel put a hand on Yen's shoulder. "It's okay. You're not alone anymore. I'll protect you." Yen looked up at him. "You? Good. Not like them." Daniel nodded. "We'll find your mother. I won't let them take you." Yen gave a weak smile, but fear still sat in his eyes. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. He watched the screen as the strange signal moved closer and closer. The next morning, the snow had calmed, but the sky was still dark. A soft wind moved across the ice like a whisper. Inside the base, Daniel prepared for the journey. He packed energy bars, extra heat packs, and his signal tracker. The signal from the night before was still active, now stronger and closer. Yen sat quietly on the bed, watching him. His small hands were pressed together. His glowing blue eyes looked tired, but sharp. He seemed to understand more now, as if each hour made him stronger. Daniel knelt beside him. "Are you ready?" Yen nodded slowly. "Yes, we go." Daniel put a warm jacket over the child's thin shoulders. He opened the base door, and cold air rushed in. Together, they stepped out into the snow, the white ground stretching endlessly in every direction. They traveled on a snow skimmer, an old machine that slid fast over the ice. Daniel held the controls. Yen sat in front, quiet but alert. The signal tracker beeped softly every few seconds. Each beep was a step closer to the unknown. For the first few miles, everything was still, but then something changed. Daniel slowed. The skimmer. He looked at the screen. A second signal had appeared. Not from the ship. Not from the mother, different. Sharp, cold. "What is that?" Daniel said, frowning. Yen turned, sensing it too. His face became serious. "Hunters?" Daniel looked ahead. "More of them?" Yen nodded. "Not from my world. They steal children like me." Daniel's stomach turned. He remembered the flickering lights in the sky last night. The voice Yen had whispered, "They want me." He pushed the skimmer faster. Suddenly, a noise cut through the wind. A deep hum, mechanical and slow. Daniel looked up. In the sky, far above, something moved, a black drone with red lights underneath. It floated, silent and deadly, scanning the snow. Daniel cursed under his breath. "They found us." Yen reached into his jacket and pulled out a small crystal, shaped like a teardrop. He held it tightly in his palm. The glowing lines on his arms flickered. Daniel noticed the snow around them shift slightly, as if the child's energy was touching the air. "Can you stop it?" Daniel asked. Yen shook his head. "Not now. Too weak." The drone turned in their direction. Daniel quickly steered the skimmer off the main path. He drove toward a rocky area ahead, a small group of ice cliffs. If they could hide under the rocks, maybe they could lose the drone. They reached the cliffs and slipped into a narrow crack in the ice. Daniel parked the skimmer behind a tall wall of snow. The hum of the drone grew louder. "Quiet," Daniel whispered. They crouched low. The red light from the drone passed over them once, then twice. Daniel held his breath. Yen's hand was glowing again, but faintly. Then, silence. The hum faded. The red light disappeared. Daniel exhaled. "I think it's gone." But Yen didn't relax. He was still staring at the sky. "More coming," he said softly. "They are close." Daniel took out a small heat lantern and lit it. They sat together. In the narrow space, the signal tracker still blinked. The original signal, the one they believed was his mother, was still moving. But now, it was running. Daniel looked at Yen. "She's not waiting. She's escaping. Yen nodded slowly. They chase her too. Daniel stood. Then we keep going. He led Yen out of the cliffs and back to the skimmer. They drove for another hour. The land changed less flat, more hills and cracks in the ice. The sky above stayed gray dots suddenly. The tracker beeped faster. Daniel's eyes widened. We're close. He slowed down. In the distance, he saw something. A dark shape on the ground, half buried in snow. It was round, silver, and broken. Crash pod. They stopped the skimmer and walked toward it. The pod was empty, but the hatch was open and warm. She was here. Daniel whispered. Yen walked forward and touched the pod. A blue light glowed. His eyes closed. She left. Hours ago, he said. She ran that way. He pointed toward a deep canyon in the distance. Daniel turned. The signal was still moving in that direction, but then his scanner blinked red. Something was coming from behind. He turned around. A second drone was rising from the snow, metal arms open, red lights flashing. Behind it, two tall black figures stepped into view, with armor like shadow and faces like glass. One of them spoke in a flat voice. Return the child. He is property. Daniel stood in front of Yen. He's not yours. The voice replied, You are not part of this. Leave now and live. Daniel didn't move. He pulled out his flare gun and pointed it high. The enemy stepped closer. Yen raised his hand. His body glowed bright for a second, then faded again. He fell to one knee, too weak to fight. Daniel fired the flare into the sky. Bright light exploded above them. In the distance, a new light answered. A ship. Coming fast. Daniel smiled. She's coming. The red light from Daniel's flare still burned in the sky, fading slowly into the gray clouds above. For a moment, everything stood still, the wind, the snow, even the machines. Then the sound of the flare echo vanished, and the tension returned like a tight string. The black armored figures didn't move. They stood side by side, tall and cold, their thin legs rooted in the snow like iron poles. Their faces were smooth glass with no mouth, no eyes, just reflections. Their voices came from their chests, flat and empty of emotion. The child must return with us, one of them repeated. He carries code, weapon, key. Daniel placed himself between Yen and the enemy. The child was behind him, trying to stand. His glowing hands trembled. He was too weak to use his power again. His face was pale, his eyes dimmer than before. Daniel's voice was calm but firm. He's not going with you. The taller figure stepped forward, metal feet clicking against frozen stone. You are human. This is not your war. Leave. Daniel's hand moved to the old plasma cutter at his waist. It was not a real weapon, but it could cut steel. His fingers curled around the handle. He knew he couldn't win a fight, but he could buy time. Suddenly, Yen stood up behind him. His voice was soft, but filled with courage. I will not go. The figures paused. For the first time, they seemed unsure. You are unstable, one of them said. Alone, weak, broken. Yen shook his head. Not alone. A loud sound broke the silence, a powerful hum from above. The sky darkened further as a shape appeared between the clouds. It was a ship, but not like the ones Daniel had seen before. It moved smoothly, like it was swimming through the air, and glowed with soft blue light. The shadow fell over them as it descended. The dark figures turned, speaking in a language Daniel couldn't understand. They backed away slowly. One raised a small orb and vanished into thin air. The second one stepped into a small round portal that blinked into existence and disappeared with it. Daniel stared at the sky, unsure if he had just imagined it. The enemy was gone, but only for now. The ship landed quietly on the snow. A ramp opened from its side. Warm air flowed out, soft and golden. A figure walked down the ramp. She was tall, with the same glowing skin as Yen. Her long hair shimmered like silver light. Her eyes were bright blue, glowing like stars, but filled with tears. "Yen!" she cried. Yen gasped and ran forward. He stumbled, but Daniel caught him, helped him take the last steps. The woman fell to her knees and pulled Yen into her arms. The light around them glowed brighter for a moment, like joy had shape and color. Daniel stepped back, letting the reunion happen. He watched silently as the mother held her child close, whispering words he could not understand. Then she looked up at Daniel. "You found him," she said. Her voice was musical, yet clear. Daniel nodded. "He was alone in the snow. I couldn't leave him. You protected him. Even when they came." "Yes," Daniel said. "I didn't know who they were, but I knew what he needed." She stood, holding Yen close. Her eyes were full of emotion. "They are not from my world," she explained. "They chase the future. Yen is more than a child. His body holds knowledge, a living map, hidden code from our history." Daniel looked at Yen, surprised. "He never told me." "He doesn't fully know," she said softly. "He is too young, but they knew. That's why they tried to take him." Daniel took a breath. "They'll come back, won't they?" she nodded. "They will." There was silence for a moment. The wind picked up again, and snow began to fall lightly. Daniel asked, "What will you do now?" She looked toward the sky. "We will leave this place. We must return to the others. He is needed. Our people are scattered. Lost. Yen is the light we must follow." Daniel looked down. He knew this meant goodbye. A strange feeling filled his chest, sadness, but also something warm. Yen turned and walked to him. He held out his small glowing hand. "Thank you," he said. "You saved me." Daniel smiled and knelt down. He took Yen's hand and gave it a soft shake. "You're stronger than you think." Yen reached into his pocket and pulled out the teardrop crystal again. He placed it in Daniel's palm. "Keep this," he said. "If ever you're lost, it will glow when hope is near." Daniel looked at the crystal, then at Yen. "I'll keep it safe." Yen smiled, then ran back to his mother. They walked up the ramp together. As the ship rose into the sky, Daniel watched it fade into the clouds. The snow fell again, gentle and quiet. But this time, the silence felt different. This time, he wasn't alone. The ship had vanished into the clouds, carrying Yen and his mother. Daniel stood for a while in the cold, watching the sky until nothing was left but the soft falling snow. The teardrop crystal lay warm in his hand. It pulsed gently with light, like a quiet heartbeat. He thought the danger was over. He was wrong. As he turned back toward the snow skimmer, his tracker beeped again, fast, sharp, and loud. A red warning flashed on the screen. Unidentified signal nearby. Moving fast. Daniel narrowed his eyes. No, not again. From the distant cliffs, a black shadow rose into the air. It was another drone, sleeker than before, flying low, scanning the ice. Behind it, two more dark figures moved like ghosts across the snow. The enemy had returned, and they were not looking for Yen anymore. They were looking for Daniel. He jumped onto the skimmer and pushed it to full speed. The engine roared, throwing up a trail of powder behind him. He didn't know where to go, just away, far from the crash site. The wind picked up, faster and colder. Another storm was rolling in. As he raced across the ice, the drone chased from above. It released a flash of red light, a tracker beam. Daniel turned sharply to avoid it, barely missing a jagged crack in the ice. The skimmer bounced and slid but kept going. Daniel muttered, "They're not going to stop this time." He looked at the glowing crystal still in his coat pocket. A strange thought came to him. Was it the crystal they wanted now? Was it more than just a gift? He didn't have time to wonder. The wind howled louder and the snow turned heavy, turning the world into white mist. He could barely see 5 feet ahead. His hands gripped the controls tightly, eyes squinting through. The frost, then a sharp sound. A shock blast hit the skimmer from behind. The machine jumped and almost flipped, but Daniel stayed on. Sparks flew from the engine. "Just hold together," he said through his teeth. He scanned the area for cover, then he saw it. A dark opening in the ground ahead. An ice cave. He turned sharply and dove inside just as another blast scorched. The snow behind him. Inside it was dark and narrow, but the noise of the wind faded. The skimmer slowed to a stop. Daniel grabbed a small light from his belt and shined it forward. The tunnel twisted deep underground. It was dangerous, but it was his only chance. He left the skimmer and moved on foot. The crystal in his pocket glowed softly, guiding him. As he walked deeper, the cold seemed to change. It wasn't just freezing anymore, it felt strange, like the air was full of memory. On the walls of the cave, lines appeared, faint, glowing patterns. Not natural. Like writing. Alien writing. Daniel touched one of the symbols. It pulsed under his fingers. He realized he wasn't in an ordinary cave. This was a tunnel left behind by someone or something. Then he heard the sound again. Footsteps. Echoing. They were in the cave too. Daniel turned off his light and crouched low behind an icy rock. The footsteps came closer. Then he heard voices. Flat. Robotic. Cold. He carries the map, not the child. Daniel's heart pounded. They knew about the crystal. They were after it. He looked down at it, glowing brighter now in his hand. Suddenly, it reacted. A blue beam shot from the crystal into the air, showing a map not of this planet, but of a star system. Dozens of worlds, paths, and one glowing center. He didn't understand it, but he understood one thing. This was why Yen had been hunted. This map could lead to something powerful, or something dangerous. He had to protect it. The footsteps grew. Louder. Shadows moved at the tunnel's edge. Daniel ran. The cave twisted like a maze. He moved fast, not looking back. The tunnel shook. One of the enemies had fired a blast. Ice cracked above him. He jumped over a deep hole and kept running. Then dashlight. Ahead, a hole in the ice ceiling. Daylight poured in. He climbed fast, his fingers frozen, lungs burning. As he reached the surface, the storm hit him hard, but he didn't stop. The wind pushed against him, the snow nearly blinding, but he could see a shape in the distance. A ship, not enemy. Not alien. His own. The emergency beacon had activated during the storm. He ran toward it, falling once, then rising again. Behind him, the cave exploded in a shower of snow and light. One of the hunters burst from the ground, but just as it raised its arm to fire, the crystal in Daniel's hand flashed. A sudden wave of blue energy burst out, knocking the enemy back into the snow. The storm swallowed it whole. Daniel fell to his knees, gasping, heart racing. The crystal dimmed again. Quiet. Still. He looked back. Nothing followed. Then he looked up. In the sky far away, a small blue light blinked once. Yen, watching. Daniel smiled. He stood up, clutching the crystal close, and whispered, "Not finished yet." The storm was quiet now. Only the soft crunch of Daniel's boots broke the silence as he walked toward the emergency beacon. His legs were heavy, his hands frozen, and the glowing crystal was now dim in his coat pocket. Still, he moved forward. The battle in the ice cave had drained him, but something deep inside pushed him to keep going. The ship ahead was small. His rescue pod from the orbiting station. It had landed automatically when it detected danger. The lights on its side blinked gently. Daniel reached the hatch, leaned against it for a second, and took a long breath before stepping inside. Warm air hit his face and his knees almost buckled. He sat down, back against the metal wall, eyes closed. Every part of his body ached, but his mind was still racing. The crystal, the child, the enemy, and the mother. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the teardrop-shaped crystal. It didn't glow now, but it still felt warm. He stared at it, remembering the moment Yen gave it to him. It will glow when hope is near, the child had said. Daniel didn't know what hope looked like anymore. Suddenly, the air inside the ship changed. A soft humming sound filled the room. Lights flickered, not from the ship system, but from something outside. He stood and moved to the small viewing window. At first, all he saw was snow and shadows. Then a figure appeared. She walked through the snow like she wasn't touching the ground. Glowing lines flowed across her arms and neck, and her hair floated behind her like silver mist. It was her, Yen's mother, but something was different this time. She was hurt. Her steps were slow, and her body leaned forward slightly like she had been in battle. Behind her, a second figure appeared, smaller, thinner. Yen. Daniel opened the hatch before they reached it. Snow and cold air rushed in again, but he didn't care. Yen, he shouted. The boy looked up. His glowing eyes lit up. He ran into Daniel's arms without hesitation. You're alive, Daniel whispered. How did you find me? Yen pulled back and pointed to the crystal. It called to us. When you used it. Daniel looked at the mother. She stood at the edge of the ramp, her body swaying slightly. Daniel stepped forward and caught her arm before she fell. You're hurt, he said. She nodded slowly. We were attacked. After we left, they followed our ship. Damaged the engine. We had to land. Daniel helped her inside. She sat against the wall, breathing hard. They are growing stronger, she said. They know Yen has awakened the crystal. They want to take the map. Use it to control the gates between worlds. Daniel's eyebrows pulled together. Gates? She looked up. There are old paths in space, rivers of energy created by those who came before. Yen carries the only map left. That's why they chase him. He is more than a child now. He is the last living key. Daniel sat quietly for a moment, trying to understand the weight of her words. Then she reached into her robes and pulled out a broken piece of metal part of her ship's control panel. We cannot fly. We need your help. Daniel didn't speak. He just stood and walked to the console. I have fuel, he said. Enough for one launch, but if we go now, we can't come back. She nodded. We don't need to come back. Yen walked over to the window and stared at the sky. They will come again, he said softly. Daniel turned to the child. Then we'll be ready. The ship shook suddenly. Outside, the snow glowed red again. Daniel looked out the window. 3 black ships were descending, forming a triangle in the sky. The enemy had found them. He turned to the mother. How long do we have? She closed her eyes. Minutes. Daniel moved fast. He powered the ship, locked the crystal into the navigation console, and secured both passengers in safety seats. Alarms flashed as the system warned him. Hostile signal detected. Launch not advised. He ignored it. He looked at Yen. Ready? The boy nodded. Hope is near. Daniel hit the launch. The engines roared to life. Fire and light burst below them as the ship pushed into the air. One enemy ship fired but missed. Another shot passed just under their wing. Then, in a burst of blue light, they passed through the clouds. Upward. Into the sky. As they reached orbit, the stars came into view. Daniel saw something in the distance, something massive, floating beyond the moon's edge. A gate. It shimmered with ancient light. Yen touched the crystal again. The ship responded, pulling toward it. The gate opened, and they flew through. The stars blurred around them like streaks of light as the ship passed through the gate. It was not just space beyond, it was something deeper, something ancient. The gate shimmered behind them, slowly closing, hiding the path to a place forgotten by most galaxies. Daniel sat at the controls, his hands still shaking, unsure of what had just happened. Yen sat beside him, calm and silent. The crystal in his hand glowed brighter than ever before. It no longer looked like just a gift. It pulsed like a living heart, full of memory and meaning. Daniel turned to him and whispered, "Where are we?" Yen didn't answer at first. He stared through the wide window in front of them. Beyond the glass floated a planet, wrapped in soft light. It didn't look like Earth, but it didn't look alien either. It looked peaceful. "That," Yen finally said, "is where we begin again." Daniel stared at the planet. His breath caught. He didn't know what to say. So much had happened in just a few days: ice, storms, machines, hunters, war. And now here he was, floating in space beside a child who was not human, and yet somehow more human than most people Daniel had ever met. The boy's mother walked slowly into the control room. She had healed a little, but her face still showed the pain of what they had escaped. Her eyes, though, were full of light. "This world," she said softly, "was one of our oldest homes. Abandoned during the last Great War, but safe. No signal here. No machines. Just life." Daniel looked at her. "You're going to stay here?" She nodded. "We will start again. Rebuild. Not just for us, but for all who are still lost. Our people need a new home, and Yen, he will help lead them." Daniel looked at Yen again. The boy smiled shyly. "I'm not a leader," he said. "You're more than that," Daniel replied. "You're the reason I'm still alive." Yen lowered his head. "You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." There was silence for a while. The ship slowly moved into orbit. Through the window, green fields and silver lakes became clear. Strange trees swayed under golden light. Birds, if they were birds, flew in long glowing patterns. It was beautiful. Daniel stood from the pilot seat. "I can help you land. Set up supplies. Maybe teach you a few things." The mother placed her hand on his shoulder. "You've done more than enough, but if you wish to stay, we would be honored." He paused. The thought of staying on this peaceful world tempted him. No more war, no more cold, no more running, but something tugged at his mind. Earth. He still had people, a home. Maybe not perfect, but his. He looked down at the crystal, now resting quietly in his hand. It had brought them through so much storms, danger, fear. It had brought hope. He placed it back into Yen's hand. "It belongs with you." Yen looked up. "Will I ever see you again?" Daniel smiled. "Hope glows when it's needed most. Right? Maybe one day I'll need it again. Or maybe you will." They both smiled. A quiet understanding passed between them. The ship touched down on the planet's surface. The air outside was clean and warm. Daniel stepped out with them, feeling the soft ground beneath his boots. He helped them set up the first shelter, unpack the small machines, and light the first fire. He laughed when Yen ran through the tall blue grass. He watched as the mother knelt and touched the soil, tears in her eyes. And when night came and 2 moons rose over the hills, Daniel stood quietly beneath the stars. It was time. Yen and his mother walked him back to the ship. She gave him a silver token, marked with their family symbol. Yen looked up. "You're part of this now," Daniel nodded. "And you're part of me." The ship rose slowly, silent in the night air. Yen waved. Daniel waved back. As he passed through the clouds, the world below became a small light. But it stayed in his heart like something sacred. Days later, back on Earth's orbit station, Daniel stood at a large glass window, watching his home planet spin below. Soldiers and scientists passed behind him, asking questions, filing reports. But Daniel stayed silent. He reached into his pocket. The token was still there. He smiled. Out in the stars, a boy had found his mother, and a man had found something he didn't know he had lost. Hope.